Bob, thank you so much for that warm introduction. I was so pleased when he asked me to come to provide an introduction to the Path Forward report and to introduce today's summit, so I'm very, very happy to do so. As you are all probably very well aware, the Path Forward report is the outcome of the Commission on the Future of Graduate Education. The commission was a joint effort launched in 2008 by the Council of Graduate Schools and the Educational Testing Service, and was comprised of a number of corporate, educational, and university leaders, as you see shown on the slide. Bill Russell, the Dean of the Graduate School at Princeton University, served as chair, and Suzanne Ortega, now provost at the University of New Mexico, was co-chair, and Deborah Stewart, the president of CGS, and Kurt Landgraf, the president of ETS, they served as ex officio members. In 2008, there was an assumption, not really supported by a lot of data, though there have been some studies, an assumption that in order for the United States to continue to prosper and to be globally competitive, that we needed to produce graduate students who had the skills, the knowledge, the tools for the 21st century. Now, it was largely an assumption. Therefore, what we wanted to do was to provide data to support this assumption. So the purpose of the commission was to provide an empirical basis to support this assumption that the U.S. Would be competitive and continue to have prosperity by producing top-notch graduate students. And then, of course, if indeed we found data to support this assumption, then we would make recommendations designed for graduate education to assure that the continued national prosperity. So what did we find? As stated in the report, several trends became readily apparent. Interest in graduate school continues to increase. Since the 1980s, we've seen a 50% increase in enrollments. We found that the number of jobs requiring a graduate degree is expected to grow by 2.5 million by 2018. This is a good thing. It's basically representing an 18% increase in the number of individuals who would need a master's degree for jobs and 17% increase for those needing a PhD. And then, of course, for those graduate degree holders, there is a premium for having a graduate degree compared to those individuals who do not. With respect to demographic trends, there's some good news there too. And although differences in gender continue to exist, the good news is that graduate degree attainment rate for women could surpass that of men in the very near future. So this is a trend that is very promising. However, there are also some demographic challenges based upon the trends that we're seeing. The nation is becoming more diverse, but less than a third of Black and Hispanic high school students enroll in post-secondary education. And unfortunately, many of them do not complete. And so the fear, of course, is that this emerging trend may result in fewer domestic students available for graduate study at a time when the nation will certainly need them. On the international front, huge investments are being made in countries in Asia, in Europe, and other places. In fact, Europe and China now produce more doctorates in the sciences and engineering than we do here in the United States. So these are some of the trends that we've seen based upon the data that the Commission collected. And along with the trends, we also found some vulnerabilities. Graduate students, especially doctoral students, are not completing. In many programs, only 30 to 50% of the doctoral students actually complete. Doctoral candidates in particular, they have many career options within academia, but they also have many non-academic career options. And unfortunately, many of the graduating doctoral students aren't aware of these options, but many options do exist. We're also finding that while we have wonderful PhD programs that are providing great training, equipping students with the skills, the tools that are needed, we're finding also that many of these traditional programs are not equipping students with the skills needed for 21st century jobs. And so there's work to do there. And then, of course, debt, significant debt that students are facing. On average, for a master's degree candidate, about $50,000 upon graduation. For PhD candidates, about $77,000. And then remember, going back to number one, we have many graduate students who don't complete, yet they still have these huge debt burdens. And then, of course, one of the problems that continues to plague us is the current structure of federal support does not support the cost of education for many of our graduate students. So we have many vulnerabilities, many challenges that we must deal with. So the report provides, as you know, recommendations for universities, employers, and policymakers as an attempt to deal with some of these challenges. Today, that's what most of the discussion will be about. How, for the state of Illinois, can we deal with these challenges? For universities, for an example, just a few of the recommendations from the Commission of course include improving completion rates, enhancing pathways for talented undergraduate students, clarifying and strengthening pathways to non-academic careers. For employers, using funding strategically. For an example, providing fellowships for graduate students, but also the possibility of endowed chairs for graduate students. Creating work study and internship opportunities for graduate students, not just undergraduates or master's degree candidates, but also for doctoral students. Creating incentives for graduate study for employees, communicating broadly, and that is to not just undergraduates, but to high school students, to doctoral candidates, some of the career paths that are likely in business and industry for graduate degree holders. And then for policymakers, some of the recommendations included establishing sort of a competes doctoral traineeship program, supporting and expanding existing graduate traineeships and fellowships, supporting development of innovative master's degree programs, expand loan forgiveness programs, and then, of course, to reduce barriers for international students. These are just a few of the key recommendations. And of course, today we will talk about, no doubt, many other possible ways to deal with some of these issues that were identified in the report. And that's why I am so glad that I'm here today, because what you're doing here in Illinois is designing the path so that we can move forward with graduate education to deal with many of the challenges, many of the vulnerabilities that have been identified. And you should know that you're not alone in doing this. Throughout the country, there are being discussions about the Path Forward report, about graduate education in Oregon and Minnesota, next week at this very hour in North Carolina and many other places. Discussions like this are taking place. We're going to show a video that puts sort of a human face from a student perspective on many of these issues that have been identified in the report. And then after the video, we have 3 panels that have been arranged to respond to the video and to the report. The first panel is moderated by Bradley Bond from Northern Illinois University. It is comprised of representatives from Senator Durbin's and Congressman Johnson's offices to discuss how the Illinois government can help. We also have the Vice President for Government Relations at CGS, who will talk about how graduate deans can advocate for legislative support. Then, before lunch, we will have a panel of leaders from Illinois business and industry, moderated by Nan Yancey from Lewis University. They'll be discussing how partnerships can be developed between graduate schools and business and industry to enhance graduate education here in Illinois. After lunch, Kimberly Nance from Illinois State University will moderate a panel comprised of a university president, a chancellor, a dean of students, a provost, and graduate deans and others who will all talk about what we can do to enhance recruitment, the quality of graduate study, and degree completion. So as you see, we're in for a wonderful day of discussion, of focusing on graduate education. And so I am absolutely thrilled that this is taking place. So let's get started, and we start with the video.